Hey guys, in art today we are going to be making some paper weaves. You can see we have some colorful examples. The whole point of this week is that we've practiced, we feel confident on our paper weaves. We picked 2 colors last time, but this time you're gonna have a lot more options in your colors. So you can use up to 3, 4, 5, however many you can fit. That goes along with whatever you're going for, you can do. You can see it can be as basic as doing this type of pattern, or you can make something a little bit more complicated where your pattern is going diagonal. I'm gonna go and show you how to get started in our video today. Here we go. All right, guys, so how to start is I would cut, or at least for this example, I have cut a 8 by 8 inch square, okay? So if you want to follow exactly to the T what I'm doing here and have it look to the same proportion as some of the examples we saw earlier, then you'll need an 8 by 8 square as well. So just go ahead and use any ruler, measure that out, and cut it. Now, if you get to this point and you're wanting to have that size, go ahead and fold the top to the bottom. Actually, it doesn't matter which way you go, but fold it hamburger style. Line up those corners, guys. This is the most important fold. You're only doing one. All right, I think I got it. Fold it down, and then go ahead and flip it so that the top has the part that opens. I'll say that again, it's really important. The top has the part that opens. So you might have to rotate it to make it that way. Now, with your scissors, we are going to cut the loom to create the warp lines. But before we do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure and have 1 inch cuts. So I'm going to line up my paper at the end of the ruler where it says 0, and I have one end where it says 8. And what I'm going to do is I'm gonna make my pencil lines on each inch or each little number. Gotta make sure to hold it very still so I can get all those measurements. 1, 2. At the very end, you'll probably flip it around, so you're not gonna see any pencil lines when you're done with this. It's not a big deal. After this point, I'm gonna cut from these points all the way up towards the top, but leaving a little bit of space. If you feel like you make good straight cuts, you can go ahead and do that now. If you wanna be just a little bit more careful, if you're scared about cutting the wrong spot, you can take your ruler, move it to the top part now, and then make 1 mark at every inch mark like I'm gonna do. That way I know where I'm headed. And I might even make the marks, not at the top, but where I want to stop for my cuts. That way I know that they're at the same height or very close. All right, from this point, I'm gonna take my scissors and I'm gonna cut each of these lines, and we'll talk right after I'm done. After this point, you've cut it out. Time to open up your loom. And now you can start, now you can start moving your weft lines through your warp lines, okay? So just to review, you're gonna go underneath, on top. So on top, underneath, on top, or over, under. And it's gonna do that the whole way across. And don't forget, when you're doing your second line, you're still gonna have it over, under, and do that pattern, but you also wanna make sure that you're having a pattern go vertically as well as horizontally. What does that mean? All that means is that you need to make sure that your second line, like I'm going to do here, starts the opposite of my first line. So my first line started on top, so my second line needs to start underneath. And this is a review from last week when you practiced your paper weaving. So now that you've done that, let's talk about the variety you can obtain. So the colors and arrangements, you can do a lot of different things. For example, go ahead and put this practice sheet away. For example, you can alternate each of your weft lines, right? So this is orange, yellow, orange, yellow, orange, yellow. And if you were following the dimensions of 8 by 8 square, you should have room for 6 different lines. 6 different lines if each of your weft lines are 1 inch thick. Okay, so that was my measurements that I did, so I could neatly fit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these guys inside here. If you're doing that, then you should cut these into 1 inch. But back to the color arrangement. So I alternated my colors. Now you could decide that if you just alternated between 2 or 3 colors, that's where you want to keep it, and that can be your goal for today. That's all right. But what I'm going to try to do is to make a different kind of pattern. Instead of a pattern that alternates like this, I'm going to have 2 colors, but I'm going to have stripes of purple that are going diagonally. Now, I'm sure there are a couple of different ways, and I'd be willing to hear what type of way you figure out how to do it, but here's the way that I've kind of found that works for me. So what I've done is I've put all of my pink strips, and I'm going to just, instead of adding different types of paper, I'm just gonna color the squares. Now, I'm a pretty good colorer, but I'm not precise enough to get it inside of all these squares perfectly without touching my loom and my warp lines. So what I've done is, after I put through my weft lines, those lines that go this way, I have gone through with a pencil and I've marked the sides of my weft line. So I have a pattern. I want my pattern to go this way, where my pencil is going. And so what I did is I made faint pencil lines on the ends of the squares. Okay, on the ends of the squares, like I'm doing here. That way, when I pull it out, I can see that if I want to make that diagonal pattern, I need to color into this square, into this square. Now, to make sure you keep the order, because if I color it and then I kind of forget, it won't take you too long, but it might take you just a little bit of time to figure out, wait, did this one go here, here, or here? What I did before I pulled these out, before I even made the marks, is that I numbered all of my weft lines. And you can see if I turn it around, there is 1 through 6. Of course, there would be the 5th one that I just pulled out. And that way, after you've made all of your pencil lines that show you where you need to color it, when you're putting them back through your loom, you can easily find what order they go in. Okay, so I'm going to color this in and give you an idea of what it looks like when you're doing a different pattern with this type of approach. Hey artists, so I'm almost done with my pattern. I just have one more strip to color and place in, and then the purple pattern will be complete on this pink and purple paper weave. But I wanted to kind of show you a couple of things that you should keep in mind when you're coloring. The first is, get the same type of colored paper and go ahead and make like a test sheet, right? Get a whole bunch of markers, colored pencils, crayons, whatever you're using, and test the colors on them, see how they look. If you're using white, it's going to be that exact color. But if you're using a different color, like in this case I am, it might change the colors when you apply them onto the paper. And so you want to be extra sure that the marker or crayon that you're using is going to turn out like you want it to before you start. Okay, the next thing to talk about is how to color it. Okay, there's gonna be a lot of planning. I want you to be real intentional about what colors you choose, if you're gonna do some sort of pattern, if you do this approach, and the more time and planning you put into it, the more successful you're gonna be. But because you're putting a lot of time in planning, you really need the coloring part to go at a quick pace, not sloppy, but a quick pace where you're gonna get things done in a fairly short amount of time. So that way you can put your energy into the planning and the assembly. Okay, so the coloring. What I've done is I place the strips on a back sheet of paper. I get my marker and I'm gonna color side to side across the strip, and I'm going to try to make sure that I have even amount of coverage. That means that the marker isn't gonna be dark on one part and light on the other. It's all gonna be the same amount of dark or light, okay? All right, so the third thing I like to mention with this whole strip stuff is to make sure that you color past the lines. When you make your pencil marks to show yourself where the square is going to be at, those are kind of pushed in just a little bit, and you wanna make sure that you have room to play with. So just in case your line shifts a little bit, you have a little extra purple on each side so that fits just nicely. Don't have it too far past the line, of course, because you need that other color to be what it is, okay? But you can color it a little past the line and it should be fine. So after I color, I get even coverage of this purple. It's ready. I know this is my 5th one, so even though my pattern looks a little strange right now, I know that there's going to be one in between these because this is number 5. My pattern got reversed the way I wanted it to go because the first one I put in had my one upside down. So just make double sure when you start putting in your first couple strips to make sure that like when you flip it over that the numbers are facing the right way. Mine are in the right order, but they're upside down, which means my pattern got upside down. It's not a big deal. It's still going diagonal, just like I like it. I'm gonna string this through, and then it should be done. Okay, I have finished this one. I've strung the 5th one through, and now I can see that my pattern is present. The last thing we're gonna do for our art activity today is all of the extra wefts that are going to the other side. Go ahead and take those and bend those towards the back. As you bend them, make sure you have a nice clean bend on the ones that are on top. The ones that are underneath you won't really notice. But as we bend them, we are going to glue them on the other side. So that way that there is one clean side that is completely, I guess, presentable, right? And clean and cut, while the other side might have these folds. So I'm gonna glue these down. That way the front looks nice and even. If you don't want to fold them down, one option is to cut them, right? The other option, I had a friend that was thinking maybe these can be frayed or kind of, I guess their words were fuzzy, and I could cut little strips on the sides so they had little fuzzy parts of paper on the sides like they were knitted. That's up to you. I'm gonna fold mine in so that it looks nice and straight on the sides. Whatever you choose for your options is up to you. So as you can see, you have a lot of different options. You can do patterns diagonally using the approach I did. You can just simply have like layered different patterns doing the wefts like by rows. So a lot of different options you could do, guys. You're just making your colored paper weaves this week. Next week when we return, we're gonna make backgrounds for these and design those backgrounds, and then we'll call it finished. It was wonderful getting to show you these methods for the paper weaves. I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.